show is their props in the show, and the hourglass prop, and how the hourglass prop rolls around and how it moves around the field, and there's kind of pieces and parts of hourglasses all around the field. So when you're watching it tonight, kind of look how they incorporate all that around the field and how it all moves around.
Okay, after them will come Madison Scouts, their 80th anniversary year.
Yeah, 80th anniversary year, taking a total different look. We were talking earlier that last year, even though they took a big step with the way they changed their uniform, it still kind of lent in some capacity to the colors of kind of what you think the Madison Scouts are. Well, this year's kind of a big departure, going to the red and the blue and the guard, kind of the blood vessel kind of colors.
Yep.
I think that's a different look for them. So that's something to keep a look at. It's a different Madison Scouts, but it's still the all-male, almost, plus one girl. There's been 3 times that they've done a female. This is the first time they're doing a female performer as playing an instrument. So keep a look out for that. Classic people there. Scott Borma has been their ranger for pushing 30 years off and on. Dr. Scott Borma, excuse me, and then James Sparling is also a really great person on percussion. Yep.
All right, Blue Stars. We have talked a lot about them this summer. Just really consistent success this year. Yeah,
they have 2 main designers that have been there for a long time, in some capacity off and on, and have worked together. Michael Shapiro and Kevin Ford. Kevin Ford's the band director at Tarpon Springs. They do Tarpon Springs, and they've done Tarpon Springs for a long time. And if you look at the show, it's kind of very in that aesthetic of how they kind of put things together.
Absolutely.
The one big change for them is they brought on Jim Wunderlich, who is known as a percussion arranger.
Yeah, he's been at BD for years, so he's got, you know, a lot of design know-how from working with that team.
Yeah, so he's traditionally a percussion keyboard, sound design, pacing kind of programming person, but now this is where he kind of enters the realm of wind arrangement. So keep a lookout for that. It's kind of that Tarpon staff with now a different kind of arranger that comes from a percussive background. So it might have a little bit more unity in the way kind of the music is overall put together, but keep a lookout for that.
So that's the first 2 blocks for you. Let's take a look now at the rankings so the viewers can see what we've been talking about in terms of these most recent scores. So these rankings, when they come up, are the DCI rankings, top 15. They're compiled by taking the last 3 scores of each group, regardless of when that happened, and averaging those last 3. And then, of course, in the far right column, you can see the most recent score. And viewers at home can see just from 8th to 10th, we've got, you know, excuse me, sorry, from 9th to 11th, sorry, my apologies. In the most recent score, Phantom Regiment 78.9, Blue Stars 78.5, Mandarin 78.6. That's 3 cores within 3/10 of each other. That's just really tight this year, Jeremy.
Yeah, it's really tight, even 9 all the way to 14. It's just, they're all really close together, and now that they're all coming together at the same show, we should really start to see these groups kind of sort each other out, since they'll have full panels. They're all in the same stadium. They all have the same contest dynamics.
So it'll be great to see coming out of these regionals. So, you know, the regionals are special in the drum corps activity because, as you were saying, we finally get to have scores that are comparable. We don't have to account for West Coast, East Coast, contest dynamics, full panel, partial panel. Everybody's in front of the same judges. So theoretically, at least, the numbers should mean something, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, you should really see what the 10ths, 2/10, 3/10 really mean when things start to sort themselves out. So you might see teams that you thought were right around each other, you might suddenly see them like a point apart, you know, because they all have the same judges, they all have the full panels, they're all in the same stadium, and it might sort out differently than what people might expect when people are on separate coasts.
Well, with that, let's jump into this 3rd block. All the heavy hitters here. We start off with the Cadets.
The Cadets, something to keep an eye out when you look at the Cadets. From what I understand, they kind of changed their programming choices towards everydays and made some adjustments. And what it looks like to me is that they went back to some classic Cadets devices. Bali Sakra, which they played in 1993, they put at the end of the show, and it's at the beginning of the show, even though this isn't titled Opening Scene. When we were watching it last week, I was like, oh, this is Bali Sakra. This is a really great decision. So keep an eye out with that. Drew Shanefield, who's the brass arranger and now the program coordinator, him and his staff, they probably looked at that and said, hey, let's do some classic Cadet stuff. And I thought thought that was a really good choice. And here, seeing the uniform we were talking about last week, as you see the back of the uniform with the Zsa fabric, got to make note of that as it sparkles. Love it.
And not a classic Cadets look, as we were talking about with Madison making some changes in their uniforms. You know, this is one of the first times we've seen Cadets really, truly go far, far away from what we've traditionally seen.
Definitely love that people are making costuming decisions based on what the program is and not based on what they feel they have to do based on the past. There's a lot more, there's some forward, the pendulum is kind of swinging towards this kind of forward-looking, what's it fit now? And it's nice to see kind of the wildness of the risk and how different it is. Cadets, it looks like a normal uniform, but it's so wild. You know, Madison, it's not a normal Madison uniform, but it fits the show. So it's awesome to see the chance.
Phantom as well, as we're about to speak about, not having the classic Phantom helmet for the first time.
Yeah, Phantom, it seems like they use this really cool idea of this kind of, the New World Symphony is the opportunity for them to create a new world or a new environment. So not only the orange and teal color scheme, but the stage setup, the pit setup, the hoods, not using the helmets, using moving props. I think it's a different look for them. And keep a lookout for the New World Symphony and the David Maslanka, I think is kind of highlights in their show.
It's nice. Traditionally, of course, haven't been able to get the rights to Maslanka, but just a classic American composer who passed away in the past year. So it's nice to see some corps doing a bit of an homage.
Yeah, it's cool. Keep a lookout for that.
Yep. All right, Cavaliers, the Green Machine.
All right, Cavaliers. So my sources, we were talking about this earlier, tell me that they used a bolero from the very first beat to the last beat of the show. Somewhere in the composition, it is worked in the brass, in the electronics, somewhere it's in there. So it's almost like a little bit of a Where's Waldo to find the bolero in the show. So as you're watching tonight, kind of look at that and see how the designers took a chance to work that in so you can hear it as it works through. So take a look for that.
Yep, lots of fun for the designers to put in the Easter egg. All right, our last few corps here, Crusaders, Drum Corps on a Desert Island.
Yeah, I'll be brief. We talked about this last week. I have a sneaky feeling that their show maybe is not complete. Maybe they have a little bit more where they're ending right now with the Lost and Found. I have a feeling there might be more to that. They might debut that tonight. They might be waiting for next week, but keep an eye out for that.
All right, and then Bluecoats, our last undefeated team of the season.
The Bluecoats, what can I say about them? They've kind of really itched out their niche as the kind of the sound design corps. Vince Oliver is the main sound designer, and then they've also started a new thing where they created not only the brass staff and the visual staff and the guard staff, but they now have the sound design staff. So it's classic kind of them taking these risks and artistic risks, and this whole list of music that they're playing is stuff you would go, where did this source come from? And I think it's just from their opportunity to go, well, this is what the show is. So I think it's a good risk for them.
Anything brief about Crown or Blue Devils?
Just a quick note, correction from last week. Crown does play multiple instruments in the show. They do play multiple instruments for the show. When the seesaw is going, they have trombones. They switch to trombones, so keep a lookout for that.
And BD.
I'll be super short with this with BD. It's classic Scott Chandler and Jay Murphy. I'm just going to sit back as a fan because I haven't seen it yet. I know they use Harlem Nocturne. I know they use Natural Woman. I'm just going to kind of take it in. So the next time I come back, I have a little bit more information.
All right. And that is a reminder that we will be back after the show with a post-show edition of Taking the Field. We want to remind you that you can watch the stream tonight not only on your computer or on your TV, but also via the FloMarching app.
Yep.
And that Taking the Field joins you live from Facebook, all the technology.
Yeah, live on Facebook Live too.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for the pre-show edition of Taking the Field. I'm Emily Tanner-Patterson.
I'm Jeremy Hunt.
And we'll be back with you after the show.
See ya.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the DCI Midwestern Championship edition of the 2018 Drum Corps International Tour here at the Dome of America Center. We are honored to have you join us at this event presented by DeMullen Brothers and Company and brought to you by Marching Music's Major League. Performing tonight in order of appearance.